Breaking Barriers.
My name is Gary Bontrager, your host of Breaking Barriers Podcast. I'm excited again for a new episode of Breaking Barriers Podcast. One thing that's interesting is all the names and the people that reach out to me and give me names of folks I should have on the show. The other interesting part with this interview today is that I have Dennis Kai here with me. And Dennis and I have done business over the years, and was a person that I knew, and I knew he was into some hot rodding and things like that. I didn't understand the extent of it. As I got into recording these podcasts, his name kept coming up, as did your brother Lanny. And we'll get into that story a little bit. And I just didn't realize what all you guys had done in the sport of tractor pulling that really got you to why we're sitting here today. So without any further ado, Dennis, thank you for taking the time, letting me come in and sit in your garage and do an interview with you. I mean, as we look behind us, there's just a lot of trophies, and you've been into a lot of different things over a very storied career. And just also for the audience's sake, just so you're aware of it, Dennis has a background that we'll get into of auto parts, and that's where our paths crossed originally. So that kind of got us started there.
Yeah.
So
my wife and I sold auto parts for 45 years. I'm pretty excited about this thing myself. Okay, this should be a lot of fun. I'd like to thank Dan Klatt for actually kind of putting this together, another snowmobile racer. He, submitted to Gary here that I was his favorite tractor puller.
Yes.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
that was very cool.
My first experiences with tractor pulling was when I was in 4-H, and we would stay at the fair. I don't know if people still do that or not, but a 4-H kid would spend the whole fair week there. And the Davenport Fair used to be like 9 days or something. It was a big adventure for young kids, and we just had a great time. And we would naturally take in all the grandstand events, and the tractor pull was one of those. And I looked at it as something that, gee whiz, this looks like a lot of fun. The first competitive thing we did was my buddy Lance Fry. His father had farmed a large farm for our area, and he had a GTB Minneapolis, which was a big tractor in them days. And they took it to the fair and didn't do much. It didn't. I don't know. I don't even think he got in the top 10. But it was interesting to do. My dad is a big problem for this sickness I have for motorsports, because he was the president of the fair, and we could get into the stock car races for free because he had that free pass on him. He'd show his little badge, and then we would go. And my buddy Lance would come along with us. Well, once we'd seen those things go around, I was hooked on the sound of those cars and what have you.
Right.
And I built little models and all this. And through those models, I bought an Alice Chalmers tractor.
Okay.
A plastic tractor that I put together. And then I took a supercharger out of the 40 Ford hot rod kit and put it on the side of that Alice tractor.
Oh, really?
So I was already into thinking about making more horsepower with them. My mother was driven crazy by me in the basement, imitating the sounds of them going around the track and all that stuff. But I really had a good time with that. And on the farm, you spend a lot of solitary time. I was the youngest of my family. My older siblings were, gone off doing things, so I would be home alone a lot.
Right.
And that would definitely keep me occupied.
So when did you start pulling? You remember the pulls and that your buddy?
Yeah, I remember.
Going.
I got all excited about them. What happened is when my brother Lanny got out of the Marine Corps and came home, started farming. He had a Farmo NTPA, and we decided it, and it was supposedly the most powerful one there was in the country. So we were going to take it to the tractor pull. Well, we made the mistake of entering it in too light of a class. And so they were big nose-heavy things, and it didn't move the skid. And I was just brokenhearted, and I remember unhooking and driving it up, and Jack Simon's brother got on the tractor with me and rode away, and he could see I was about in tears, and And he was saying, don't worry, son, you'll do better next time. Well, I guess that was all the encouragement we needed. So
real quick, one story that's real interesting before we go forward with that is the type of sleds that you would have used.
Oh, yes, it was a stone boat.
Okay.
And a person got on every 5 feet or 10 feet, I'm not sure of the distance.
And they'd put a tractor or something on for weight to start with if they needed to, depending on the
normally,
class.
what it was an old gas tanker truck, and they would put water in the different compartments of the tanker.
Okay.
And to change the weight. And they would drag it over by the water fountain thing and pour it in, and then you'd make it increasingly heavy that way.
Right.
And then the guy stepped on, okay?
Right.
And, okay, with the MTDA, and let's see, I got a whole bunch of...
Well, you made a bunch of notes, which is really nice, and I want to kind of stay in order with them. I don't want you to miss them too much, but...
You interrupt me whenever you want to.
Okay.
What we found out was a neighbor to Lanny's father-in-law, it's actually right up the road here on Utah, was Kenny Brandt. And he was a big legendary guy back in the days with the tractors.
Okay.
And I had seen him at the fair run, and he had a 460 that he had all hopped up, and he could make the smoke come out of that thing like crazy. And then we found out, oh boy, he lives close by. So I bugged that guy because I could call him. It didn't have to be long distance. It used to be at the long distance to call Davenport from home, and I could still just dial him up. And we talked about the different pulls in Illinois.
Right.
We talked about the big deal in Knoxville and places like that. And people like Bill Newland. I don't know if you ever heard those names yet, but they were big names back then. As far as Bill Newland had a Minneapolis with a 6-cylinder in it, when everybody else, when the stock tractors only had a 4.
Right.
And he was just, like a big hero. Just unbelievable how much power that thing had.
What era was that? In the 60s?
That would have been in the 60s, or I'm talking early 60s.
Right.
Right. I wasn't driving yet. So,
okay.
I mean, that was back there.
Yeah, back a few years.
I was only like 14. Well, when my brother got out of the service, I was 14. So
okay.
I wasn't very old. And Kenny Brandt was really something, and I just pestered him to death. And what was really interesting is he had a GMC blower mounted on a sling to keep the belt tension on it, and then a hose running out the back of it up to the air intake on the 460 that he had, and then that was quite a setup. And I remember him making full pulls, pounding on the dash and stuff, everybody just cheering.
So he was really getting into the effects of it.
Yeah, he was really an inspiration.
So he really had more of a supercharger than a turbocharger.
He had and then he started talking about that turbochargers were available for these tractors, okay?
Right.
And we hadn't seen one yet, and then Dick Stewart, I don't know if you know. If
that name's come up, yes.
He showed up with one, and they said it had 90 horsepower, and our eyes were about this big. Wow, never heard of such a thing. And he just won everything with that, at the fair.
Right.
And so Lanny and I were going, because we had been running Lanny's 560 by then, by just doing the smoke screw and overdoing the governor.
Right.
So you could run it up to about 3,500 RPM, And I do remember some kid yelling, "Look at it, he's got a string on that thing." And so it was quite an adventure. Let's see, and then Kenny, introduced us to a lot of pulls around. And pullers, okay, as far as had the names of who to watch and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, and then by this time we had that 560. Okay, so we were thinking about putting a turbo on it.
Right.
The local dealer, I think, wanted $600 for the turbo. They had a kit.
Right.
That was, I think it was an aftermarket kit. See, and we thought it came from International Harvester. Well, then we saw one in the newspaper advertised on the Des Moines Register for $400. And because they weren't selling, people were cautious.
Right.
And so I talked to the dealer out here, and he says, I just thought, well, I'm going to look at this kit because I'm thinking about buying one. I'll make sure I get everything. And the guy says, well, how much do they want for it? And I says, well, $400. And they said, well, we'll do that. And I said, will you put it on for that? And they said, yeah.
So they wanted to promote.
So they put it on and
Right.
everything. And so then we had the turbo. Well, hell's bells, we went to down to Knoxville, which
Right.
was just a huge pull compared to what the Davenport one was. Just, tons of tractors.
Because by the 70s, 80s, the Davenport pull, though, became quite a spectacle.
Yes, because of Lanny and Daryl.
Right, promoting it.
And Bud Weir and Dean Vanderheiden.
Yes.
And these guys.
Yeah, and we'll come back to that, but I just knew at one
we
point that was
definitely got to talk about that.
But but over at Knoxville was a big deal.
It was a big deal, and that's by Galesburg.
Right.
And
That's Knoxville, Illinois, not Knoxville, Iowa.
Knoxville, Illinois. And let's see, okay, and we went to Knoxville. What's interesting, and my wife Shelley wanted to make sure we said that we drove it there.
How far was that?
50 miles,
Okay.
40 miles.
So-
I guess Lanny said when he got to where, I can't remember which town it was it Kewanee? I mean, he had a ways to go yet. He says, I guess I'm going to start opening it up. Otherwise, he was running it at the stock RPM.
So he sped it up to get there quicker.
Because Kenny Brandt had showed us how to put a link on the throttle linkage that would then push the throttle out that much further, so it would overdrive the governor.
Right.
It would override it, I guess is
Yes.
the right word to do. And so they always called them half throttle because, half throttle was about what the 2100 or whatever
Right.
it was you were supposed to run. And then you could open that sucker up and really get to flying with it. So we drove that thing down there with the turbo, and then he made a decent run, but we blew a head gasket. So then we had a big problem what we were going to do. But we ended up borrowing, went back to my buddy Lance Fry, got his dad's truck and went down and got the crazy thing,
And that was the problem with that motor in the 560, that 282, was the head gasket. It was always the weakest link. They had, a few other models had that same motor, and people put turbos on them. And, today I think you can stud the head, or stud them and do some things, but they just didn't have enough head bolts.
But everybody had a 560.
Oh, everybody had a 560, and they were a great pulling tractor.
Well, and then they had those 15.5 tires and everything. And Lanny liked to experiment with that. He seemed to think that the smaller tire had an advantage because you would dig in more. And we tried that, and that didn't work.
That wasn't the case.
Okay, and during this whole time, this was causing me big problems at home. My mother was just on my case from morning till night about I was going to cause my brother to have his tractor blow up, and he wouldn't have anything to feed his family with. So there were some really weird circumstances that happened. I know we went to Columbus Junction one time, and Lanny drove it down there, and I was going down with my buddy Lance and Daryl Dorsher, and I said, now don't say nothing to my mom where we're going. Tell them I'm going to Chicago. And they're saying, your parents would rather have you go to Chicago than Columbus Junction. I said, yeah, I don't know.
You just didn't want to get in trouble.
This is really causing trouble at home. So and it stayed kind of that way with,
I can get that
with
for you
my
if you need
mother.
it.
She really hated this stuff. My dad, he wasn't too wild about it either. Anyway, I went away because of this. The problems I had. I ended up having a lot of trouble in school and went away to school. And didn't really get back home for a while. So
when you went away to school and you said you had trouble with school, you just were getting behind on grades?
Well, I was in high school. I went to high school in Arnold's Park, Iowa, which is 375 miles from here. And
because you were just getting in trouble here or not focusing?
Well, I was having trouble, with school and my parents. And
so they sent you away?
They put me on the bus and said goodbye.
And you had to go figure it out. So you're a bit of a rowdy child.
I caused a little trouble. Yeah.
Was what they probably call today maybe ADHD, possibly?
I guess my daughter that's a school teacher tells me I'm the poster child for
ADHD. Yeah. And I experienced a lot of the same. It's just I think when soon after I went through, they started to figure that out and understand.
Yeah.
We learn a little different. I sometimes couldn't hardly do schoolwork, but I could overhaul a tiller motor at early teenage years. Well, and so those are just what happened.
I could do the schoolwork, I just couldn't concentrate on it.
Yeah.
Just couldn't find interest in it.
Yep.
But anyway, I went, that far away, and the folks got to missing me, and we decided to make somewhat of peace. But rather than start back at the school that I was supposed to go to, I ended up going to Wilton, where my sister lived. And my sister, in this particular case, I had several parents because you always had to live with your guardian back then. And so my sister is actually my guardian. And so I went to school in Wilton, and that's where I met Shelley as she was just a young girl, she was a freshman when I was a senior, and she really should have been an eighth grader.
I got you.
So
and Shelley's your wife.
There was just such a dearth of stuff that she made it well known that she fancied me, but I was just kind of like, okay, that's okay. But while I was in Wilton, we found this junkyard that had a whole bunch of F-20s and F-30s. It was Slick Tharp, his name was, pretty interesting name. Good name for a junkyard guy. And we bought a F-20 from him with Montgomery Ward's tires for $35.
Okay.
Delivered. He hauled it from Wilton to Lance Fry's shop. And in the process for the $35, we also got an extra set of frame rails. And so, because this was Lanny's engineering, Norman Fry welded the two frame rails butt to butt,
Right.
and made the tractor 14 feet long. And so we were already way ahead of people in this leverage issue.
So at that point in time, and by now you're talking later 60s, right?
63.
Okay.
63 or 64.
And nobody would have been stretching out frames to make like a hot rod the way that they were soon to do it at that point.
We were going to make a hot rod tractor out of it because Lanny and I ended up buying a Cadillac engine that was all chromed up. We figured, oh boy, that's a good one. I can't remember if we gave $30 for it or something, but we could never get, and it came with the hydromatic transmission. We never could get the crazy thing to run. We couldn't get it to start. And my mechanical abilities were, somewhat limited.
Right.
Didn't know what I was doing. And we just couldn't get it to go. And during that period of time, the Vietnam War was breaking out. I'd graduated from high school. And then the thing got kind of pushed in the side, but I can't remember where we went with it. I guess it went to Lanny's place to get it out of Norman Fry's shop.
Right.
And
Lanny's your brother.
Lanny's my brother.
Right.
Yes. And then Daryl Dorsher was a friend to Lance, my buddy Lance, who's, we were very close friends for my whole life. Okay. And he just passed away of all the darn things. And so I met Dorsher through him. Okay. And then Dorsher just kind of moved in on this deal, especially when I went to the service. Then Daryl needed a drinking buddy, so he started hanging out with Lanny, and they got to be really close.
Right.
So that was quite a situation.
So you ended up, though, at that point, just the era you were in, you were getting drafted for Vietnam.
I was going to get drafted.
Yeah.
So I did go to school out in Omaha, and I went to two schools out there at the same time. One to be a doctor, one to be a mechanic. That was kind of an interesting combination. And
I would say so.
And that kept the draft off me for a little while, but not
very long.
Not very long. It was coming. So
let's pause on that one a little. So clearly you had natural mechanic abilities, so that took you that way. What took you down the road to consider being a doctor?
Well, it just maybe. I guess I had a lot of interest in biology.
Okay.
And I found it interesting.
Right.
And
you did the two at the same time.
Yes, I was good. I went to one of them was during the night, one was during the day. Yeah.
Was that common that folks would enroll two different fields like that?
No.
So what got you to do it?
Well, I don't know. I always worked two jobs. So.
Okay, so why not?
Why not?
Interesting.
But I mean, as far as it was just like they called it pre-med. It wasn't like
right. No, I understand, but still, that's two very different fields,
diverging things.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe I was confused, or maybe what were you just calling me? ADHD?
Yeah,
Maybe
let's figure this out.
Okay. Anyway, the draft was breathing down my neck the whole time. I was starting to, just live on love and alcohol. Daryl loaned me money to keep my car running. I'd blown the engine up in it, and so he bought me a short block, and this would have been in April in '66.
And what car was that?
I ended up going to boot camp. Okay.
So what car did you have?
I had a '57 Chevrolet two-door 210.
And he helped you get a motor back in it. But then in '66, you went ahead and joined the Marine Corps, right?
Joined the Marine Corps in '66.
Okay.
The car was like I say, it was a '57, and when I left, it had a 365 horse 327 in it with Doug's headers and all this kind of stuff, and Daryl owned the engine, and I owned the rest of it. Okay. So when I came after boot camp, all these things that seemed like were a hard thing to get going looked like baby, easy, because we could, if they said walk up that wall, you could do it.
Right.
And so, I've been writing them letters all along. When I get home, we're going to build that tractor.
Right.
The car doesn't have enough pieces to run, and it belongs to Daryl and this, that, and the other, and I'd never be able to afford to take it back with me.
Right.
So let's take the engine out of there and put it in the tractor. And everybody, oh, hot dog, that sounds like fun. And so we built that in Lanny's front yard, on the farm that he was renting, and then we plugged in the welder to through the window to Joanne's stove, so she couldn't cook
while you were welding this tractor together.
We were blowing fuses all the time and stuff.
Oh my goodness!
And so anyway, we got that engine in there, and the transmission, was broken. Besides that, the Muncie, the second gear would kick out a gear, and stuff like that. So we only had 3 of the 4 speeds to use. But we used the compound transmission, the car transmission ahead of the tractor transmission. And the F20 lended itself well to doing this with that open frame and business.
Right.
Okay. So we put that into the F20 in Lanny's yard. Okay. And then, so it was ended up that, me and Daryl shared the engine, and Lanny had a share in the tractor, and he had the truck.
Okay.
So we, They were still using the stone boat back then.
Okay.
With the people getting on.
Right.
And we went up to Wyoming, Iowa, the first time out with it. And Lanny looked at Daryl, Daryl looked at me. They all looked at me and said, "You're driving." Okay, because they didn't want to look like fools out there.
So they were like, put you on it.
So I put it on. Okay, so I got, the first time out, I didn't know what it was going to do, and I wasn't paying close attention, and I got third, okay? And it cost us, I think it was $5 to enter the 3 classes we were in, so we had $15 invested, and we got $15 for. Daryl went and ran and got the check right away, because he was just all worried about this deal, and he was just doing backflips. We got our money back. He was so happy.
But again, $5 back then is probably like what, a couple hundred a day,
I would
possibly?
say it was a lot.
That's a lot of money.
I didn't pay them.
They had to pay it. They wanted their money back.
I didn't have the money.
You're in basic training.
So, and what was interesting is I could go so fast that people were falling off the stone boat. They couldn't get on quick enough. And from then on, I just made pulls. I just, ran the thing as hard as I could go.
And if people couldn't get on, that was your advantage and their problem.
Yeah. And so all the guys we always call them the fellows from Westchester were there.
Oh, yes.
Cornash and Simons and all those characters.
Yes.
And see, back then, what was really the hot setup was that Montgomery Ward's tractor with that 6-cylinder Continental or Chrysler or whatever it was.
Right.
And they could rev them babies up,
Right.
And they were winning all the tractor pulls.
Right.
And then we had the Montgomery Ward's tires too, which had that crazy lug that worked really well.
Right.
And so they were all eyeballing that, and that tractor, they started calling it the Long Devil.
The Long Devil. So they were still running a standard size frame.
They were still running a standard style tractor, but there was one that they had a V8 in. And I'm not sure, you know, whether they just got it out of a junkyard or
Right.
whatever, but it didn't really have a lot of power.
But you couldn't get enough. I mean, the frame wasn't long enough to do it. You guys were getting a lot more leverage on that.
Yeah, that was the deal. And we then went just all over hell and one with it. We went down to Peoria, which was a really big event where there was over 50 in our class. And I think I got third, you know, and during this whole thing too, when I was driving, it was always they always had my address is Camp Pendleton, California. And these people were all like, oh my goodness.
We got this big guy from California in here.
That's what they thought. These guys had all kinds of money and they were out here, you know.
And you're just out here traveling the Midwest, cleaning them up.
I don't know if you ever heard their name. Dick Hearn he was like on one of the farm shows.
Yes.
I don't know if you know that.
I've heard of that name,
okay.
Yes.
And he was kind of a character too. And I do remember him saying, because we got third in the regular class, and then Joanne, Lanny's wife, would drive in what they call the powder puff back
Right.
where you'd have that a lot. And she ended up winning. And I remember him saying, you know, there he is with his California dolly, you know. And I was yelling in her ear time, more gas, more gas. Poor gal.
Funny.
There she was, a mother with little kids and stuff driving that crazy thing. You know, about as unsafe, and me riding on the drawbar with her.
Oh, they let you ride on the
Yes, the both of us were out there. I was hanging on the steering post and, you know, the feet on the drawbar.
She had to drive it, but you could hang on and go along the instructor.
Yes. Yeah, her and Buzzy Baker used to, you know, go at it pretty heavy. Yeah, so, and that was, you know, kind of how do you want to say, a big breaking point, and they really took off from there. I went back to Camp Pendleton, and Darryl continued to run and win in Davenport, Knoxville, State Fair. It was really the first really high horsepower tractor that ran good. Although when we were at Peoria, there was a guy with a 440
Chrysler,
Larry Mitchell.
Yeah.
And I believe we beat him in the powder puff anyway. But I think we even outran him in the regular thing. You know.
Oh, really?
I think.
So
we once we saw that, we said, oh yeah, okay, you're going to need to get a big block.
Yeah.
Okay, then.
Because the 327 was kind of the big motor at the time when it first came out, right?
Yes. But they were still had 409s and stuff.
Yes.
And we would run against them to a certain extent, and could usually, you know, do just as well because, you know, so many of them didn't hit on all 8 cylinders and stuff.
Right.
You know, everybody was still having trouble making them run.
Well, you were dealing with points and weaker coils and carburation and things.
So anyway, I went back out west, and they continued to run and won all kinds of stuff. Over the winter, you know, we started building. They went to Slick and got an F30.
Oh, okay.
And then they bought a 427 crate engine and put that in the F30, much the same as with the compound transmission again, and it had the Ward's tires on it, and they went and ran against, you know, who am I saying? Marshall Meyer, Phil Aylward, all these guys that had these big, you know, expensive 1206s and stuff with turbos.
Yeah, I think Aylward's had an 856 and later.
That was the other thing. Besides the Stone Boat, we were still running stocks against modifieds in the same class.
Right.
And once we brought that 427 out, all of a sudden that stuff stopped. They
couldn't compete.
The other pullers would refuse to pull.
Right.
Okay, where the Long Devil, they ran against us some and didn't get too excited about it, but we still won everything. But once we went to that F30, then you started having, you know, big issues. I remember, what is the name of the town out here? It got to be a pretty bad deal where we had to get the hell out of town.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Folks were getting upset or what?
Yeah, everybody was upset.
Yeah.
They were not happy about, you know, everybody fighting amongst themselves.
So you called that first tractor the Long Devil?
Well, I mean, it was just how it was known,
Yeah. And that was, how long did it take for others to start stretching out their frames and copying you on that?
I don't know that it happened right away, but during the formation of NTPA, they ended up being exactly the length of that tractor.
Oh, really?
Now, whether somebody had been measuring it or whatever, but you know, you say you could drive up to the wall where it would touch and it'd be 14 feet to the side of the axle. That's what that one was. Just right on the money. Now, I don't know. You know, we always thought that was pretty interesting.
Right. Oh, it's very likely.
Yeah, because that turned out to be, if you put two F20 frames, you know, end to end and welded together, that's what it came out.
That's what it was. Interesting.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, we just call it the F20.
Right.
Yeah, so we got that F30. They put the 427 in it. Yeah,
just to have a heavier rear end.
Pardon me?
Just to have a heavier rear end.
Yes, to have a heavier rear end.
The transmission, were you still running stock transmissions?
The stock transmission of the F20 and the F30.
And then also the car transmission.
And the car transmission.
And that was stock too?
The car transmission that they put on the F30 was actually like a pickup one. You know, with the big shifter and stuff.
Right.
If I'm thinking right, yeah.
Or but it was an automatic or a manual?
They were manuals.
Okay.
And then what we would run is third gear on the front transmission and low on the back transmission.
To get your ratios.
To get the ratios that worked, and that seemed like that always worked out best. Because we never did go direct. We didn't have enough power with those engines to go direct drive.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
interesting.
Because that still. Okay, we're still running, and then over that next winter, we heard about that Bob Talon. I don't know if that's a name that you know or ever heard of. Won a pull at a place called Bowling Green, Ohio, for $500.
Oh my goodness!
And we went, oh my God, that's more.
That's a lot of.
That's just too much because we were used to winning a lot of it.
Right.
So we packed up and went out there. That was in the summer of '68, I think.
So were you back from the service by then?
No, I was when I would come home on leave.
That's when you do it. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, okay, and this was an interesting trip because I was just out of the hospital. See, I about got killed in a truck accident.
Oh, okay. In the service.
And I'd been in the hospital that whole time. And when I come home from October of '67 to the summer of '68, I was just out of the cast. And we drove out there to Bowling Green, and we went, holy Christ, what are we doing here? Because then they were all back to these real short tractors. And there was stuff with rotary engines and
really?
And stuff that you'd never seen before, and we just didn't know. And the guys would go real slow, and they would have them up in the air like this, and they'd be just walking along with the guy with his shirt dragging on the ground, and you're kind of like, holy smokes, what is this all about?
And you thought you might be way behind.
Yeah, we just thought we're either going to be super trick or we're going to be super junk here. We're just going to have to see what happens. Well, I think we still placed pretty good. We were in the top 10. I keep thinking like a third and a fourth, between the two tractors.
Oh my goodness.
So, but I mean, there again, you were back to 50 and 60 in a class.
Right.
Darius Harms, I don't know if that's a name that ever comes up to you.
I think I've heard it.
He won out there. See, and this was the first time we ran into. We used to weigh in ahead of time, and they would mark on your tractor how many weights you had.
Right.
Okay. This was the first we had the concept where you had to weigh out. Okay. And Darius Harms won out there, but he didn't. He came out too heavy, and there was a big to-do about that. Now, I don't know what they ever did to him, whether he won that or
whether
not.
Yeah.
But he had a good run in 1206 or whatever it was in those days. And so in '69 again, I came home again, and with the two tractors not running well, and they were already using bigger tires by then, 18.4, 34 Firestone Field and Road.
Okay.
Which was kind of taken back over as far as what you wanted to use with that field and road tread. And we went out to the, let's see, there was an interesting thing is because after I came home on leave, then And I went back out to Camp Pendleton. I ended up coming home again being discharged.
Oh, okay.
So then I finally, in the fall of '69, I got out just in time to start school here at the junior college.
So you spent about 3 years in the Marine Corps?
I was in about 3.5 years.
3.5 years.
Yeah,
Well, thank you for your
I was on a
service. I
4-year
really
hitch,
appreciate that.
Yeah, and I would have gone to Vietnam twice, but I about got killed here. So, okay. So then we all got our heads together and said we need more horsepower. And I had on my way home from Camp Pendleton, I had a wheel bearing go down on my GTO, in Dalhart, Texas. Okay, and while I was waiting for to get a wheel bearing pressed on, I was talking to the guy in the shop, and he said out there they use a lot of twin engines on the gas wells and stuff like that, or oil wells for powering stuff, and it's just them and Allison's, and they found the twin engine 427s to be more reliable, and this, that, and the other, and so then I asked him, well, how do you hook them up and stuff like that, and he gave me a whole bunch of insight on that, and with the double roller chain, and then as far as what about the keyway, well, people just didn't have machine stuff like they do now, and we would take and drill half and put it in the drill press, put the whole engine in there, and then just
drill down through
the harmonic balancer,
and
then we took the harmonic balancer and had a guy put more bolts in it, and then we made it, then had him make a coupling with those two roller chains, and so that was quite a deal that we thought, well, that might be good. So really, we'd only heard of a couple people trying twin engines.
Yep.
And everybody that ever saw it said, well, how do you get them to run together?
Right.
That looks like that's not going to work, and everything like everything in my life.
Did you have much trouble though getting them to sync up and run together? Yeah.
Nothing problem. You just coordinate, and it's just like syncing carburetors.
Right.
You can do the same thing.
Well, and the crazy thing is, as quick as you got under load, if once it's
wide
harder,
open,
it didn't
who
matter.
cares?
Yeah, nothing
and
mattered.
We didn't spend a lot of time part throttle anyway. Not me anyway.
Yeah. Wound it up and let her go.
This thing by E.J. Potter up here, ignorance is surpasses knowledge sometimes.
Well, it does sometimes, but sometimes that's how you figure things out too. So.
Yeah. So anyway, let's see. Yeah, and Lanny, let's see. We found another 427. Hooked everything up, and then we called that entry the Kai Brothers Endorser. We won the first time out with it in up there by where Roger Glassnap is from. I don't know if you know that name or not.
I don't think I do.
Glassnap, his kid, they were NTPA pullers from the get-go.
Okay.
Can I find you something to sit on?
No, I'm good. I'm hanging on. I'm just making you look up all the time.
Don't worry about that. I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so we alternated drivers. Back then, they were going to the mechanical skid. So you didn't have, the stone bolts, I think, were done, once we came with that first 427, you started not seeing it anymore. And then what was really, though, interesting at that time is they had the pace tractor. Now, I haven't seen anybody talk about a pace tractor on here.
No, it hasn't. I don't know if it's hardly ever come up, but I do remember those things.
Okay.
So you were running those, right?
We had to run with a pace tractor. And see, and that would be, you could run up on him, and you'd have to keep the pace tractor interested, because in a lot of places, if you didn't keep up with him, he'd let up. Okay, so you would run out there, and you'd get this situation, and that's where Lanny and I used to go, oh boy, because he was reluctant to run right up on the guy.
Right.
And Daryl would do that too. He was good at that, and I was still having difficulty getting real interested in driving these things because, I had just been about killed under a heavy thing, so.
So you'd rather just work on it.
I was a little reserved about wanting to do this, but after I'd seen that enough, then I started driving.
But you just wanted to, they put you in the seat to begin with, but then they kind of kicked you back out.
For a while.
For a little while, but then it just took you a bit to get back into it.
Get back into it.
Right.
So we ended up being at odds on this thing, but it was a very successful tractor. and we ended up at odds between us, and we split up the partnership. Daryl got an engine, I got an engine, which I put in a car that I used to take Shelley out with.
Oh, really? Got that car back and running.
Let me think about all this. Yeah, and then Lanny went ahead and built another engine and ran it as a single engine tractor.
Oh, okay.
For a while.
Same chassis.
And he ended up winning M&W with it, which was a big pullback in that case. And
that was a big deal.
Which was billed as a world pull championship. And I had his trophy in here, but I just gave it to Randy, his son. And he had built this really fancy motor, and he did really well with it. And at that time, during that period of time, Shelley and I reconnected, and we ended up getting married. And then we had our auto parts business downtown Davenport, 310 East 2nd Street, where there's a parking lot now.
So what got you into the auto parts, coming off the farm and doing all this performance stuff, and much less when you did auto parts, you were into foreign car auto parts, which was a little unusual back then. And that's kind of when I met you originally, or met your staff, because I was from the Iowa City area. But you guys were kind of you were the go-to place for foreign car parts. Yeah,
we'd like to think we did a good job. What it amounted to is, it's kind of an interesting story in itself. The buying all this stuff from a machine shop, speed shop guy.
Right.
I got to know the fellow, and then he said something about imported cars, and I said, "Holy smokes, that's all they are out in California."
Right.
And I said, I used to work on them. I'd be out there with my arm in a cast, working, telling other guys what to do.
Right.
And I said, I've had some experience with it. And he said, really? And he says, well, what do you want to do? So anyway, he had the money, I had the time. See, I didn't have no money. I didn't have nothing.
You just come back out of the service, getting married.
I was going to junior college.
Right.
And, just at kind of the finish of all that, I was, Shelley and I had taken up, and, he just said, well, why don't you do this? What we'll do is, like I say, he's got the money, I got the time, we'll split the time.
Right.
And so that worked out good for several years, and then I ended up buying him out, so then I had the whole thing, I bought out his half, basically, and of course, you always pay too much, but,
Well.
But he didn't have to do it either.
Right. People say that often, but I've seen a lot, and I do, of course, work with some business consulting, but I see a lot of people, though, too, that miss an opportunity because they think they pay too much.
Yeah.
But over the period of time, as you look back today, I'm going to guess it still gave you a wonderful lifestyle.
He made a mistake selling it.
Yeah,
because we became so much bigger than what his operation was that he'd have been, he'd been envious of the whole deal.
Right.
And we still ended up being, we could still talk to each other. Whatever.
Right.
And we had a lot of good times.
Business excites me, and a lot of times I think people wonder, how do people afford all this tractor pulling? And back in those days, from what I understand, just about everybody that was in it came off of a farm. They were farm related. And a lot of them farm too. Today, that's kind of flipped. It's a lot of them are business owners or in some other position. There's still a lot of farmers out there. But I think when we went through that 80s farm crisis, it took a lot of that out.
Took the wind out of our sails,
And so,
because it used to be was the farmer would have the time, to go to these fairs that were during the week where all his polls were. That was something I wanted to touch on too. We ran a lot in Illinois because of the horse race tracks. The tax that Illinois would get from those, they would give to the county fairs. And the county fairs could supplement the prize money that you got.
Really?
So a tractor pull in Iowa would typically, back when we were running that 327, would pay maybe $50 to win. I remember Daryl saying, "We're not going there unless it pays $50." Where in Illinois, 100 to 150 was real popular.
Really?
And we could go there and win 3 classes, you know. And Lanny, you know, he made his living in the summer on that, you know.
Really?
Lanny and Daryl, you know.
So you were running, you carried a lot of weights with you then too.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes. These things right here, those stencils right there, can you see those?
Yep.
Those tug at my heartstrings, because we use them to mark the weights, you know, so we'd know whose they were.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I'm just going to grab them real quick and hold them up. Just so you guys can see that. One says,
that was probably in so many pictures.
And then the other one, of course, was DK. And it's just very unique because everybody was contributing to the cause. But then it was you and
Lanny.
Just you and Lanny then. And had the tractor together.
Yeah. Well, Daryl was in on it.
He was in on it too. But at some point you guys split up.
But the weights we just marked that way. Oh geez. Yeah. At one time it was just Lanny and I had one, and I had one, and Daryl was out of tractor pulling.
Okay.
You know, and that's probably where we're at on that. Why we got those stencils. But that happened when, like in, well, let's see here. Where are we at? Okay. We won a lot of events, but the pace tractor issue caused a lot of problems with us, a lot of discord between us.
Because I remember people also then trying to sandbag on the pace tractor, and they'd take off, and then the pace tractor would
and that's why they would do that.
Timing off.
And see, we would ask them ahead of time, what do you do? You know, are you going to let up on us, or are you going to? Otherwise, then you could sandbag and just chase
get
on
a hard
up.
run at him.
But normally that was a tough go-to. Because you would have that, you just wouldn't have the momentum to just take off
going,
again.
right?
Because you'd already have a lot of weight on you,
right?
And it would be hard to accelerate out.
And those sleds were very different than they are today.
Totally.
They pulled way harder from the start. We want to thank Bob Parks with Custom Tire Cutting and the Parks Pullers for supporting the Breaking Barriers podcast. Their product speaks for itself. It has helped us get many wins, as well as many other pullers out there. Check them out and try their product. You will not be disappointed. Thanks again for your support at Breaking Barriers Podcast.
Let's see. And then Lanny had that fancy engine, and he ended up winning the M&W. Shelley and I reconnected and got married. So things, you know, and then a fellow came to the shop down there. You know, when we first started Foreign Car Parts, I worked in the back. I did tune-ups on Volkswagens and MGs, Jaguars, and you know, and whatever came in the door, because the speed shop that the guy put in was next door. So I would be building high-performance engines and stuff as well, and you know, putting tractor pullers coming there and building fancy engines and putting them in. And I did a lot of header work, did a lot of exhaust work. You know,
were you making them?
Yeah, welded the headers together and stuff like that. And I know there's some still floating around. I hear about every once in a while.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that was, you know, and there was people would come hang out there that were into tractor pulling and and having a good, you know, just come there to see things. A fellow approached me to put a 440 in a Roadrunner that had a 426. And I would get to keep the Hemi, even though because it was blown up.
Right.
Okay. And so we worked a deal where he paid me some money besides, and because it had spun a bearing or something, which was fairly common on that.
Right.
And so I changed. You have to change the K member and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So it was quite an operation.
Right.
But I ended up with that. That's where I got the seed for the first 426. Talked to Daryl at that time, because I didn't have a tractor, and seeing if he was interested. So we said, well, okay, let's give it another try. Okay, and so we went out to Slick, got us another F30, and this one, the thing that if you're ever going to ask me if we had any regrets, we did not realize that it had a road gear in it. So that having that transmission would have changed my whole career if we could have done that. If we had realized it, but we ended up breaking the damn thing.
So you wanted a road gear, or you did not?
We wanted a road gear.
And it didn't have it?
It had it. Okay, otherwise it had just those 4 speeds.
Right.
And it would only go, the stock tractor would, how much would an F30 go? 10 miles an hour?
Probably, yeah.
Luckily,
10 maybe, yeah, something like
okay.
that.
But it had a road gear that would probably go 20. Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And we didn't realize it. Okay. But anyway, we started building this first Supercharged Chrysler.
Okay.
And, I didn't know too much about them.
And that was a Hemi 426 Supercharged.
Where we'd always been running the 427 Chevrolet and stuff, and knew those backwards and forwards. And then we put a clutch flight transmission in it, and we were one of the few people to have an Enderley fuel injector.
Really?
Almost nobody ran an Enderley. Everybody ran a Hillborn back then.
Yes.
And I always could never figure out why, because the Enderley was just 10 times simpler.
Right.
Simpler to work with, But it was a little bit of a barn door thing, where you don't have good, throttleability.
Right.
But, how much of your time did you spend at idle? Not much.
Not much. It was just a matter of winding it up and going.
Okay, so, and we put a clutch flight in it, okay, for the compound transmission. And the clutch flight was really nice in that you could run up on that base striker, like you're saying, and then when you're starting to spin and he's starting to get away from you, you could flip it into high gear, and you just, boom, you just explode out ahead of everybody about 30 feet, And we won so many events like that. And I remember Lanny would just be infuriated. He'd be running against us with 2 engines.
And you were beating him with one.
With one.
And a lot of it was the transmission setup.
And he says, he just was really upset about that.
What were you still running stock transmissions?
What was that?
Were you still running stock?
Stock. The F30 was still a stock transmission.
Okay.
But that one but we weren't using 4th gear because which would have been the road gear. But because we would run we were running direct drive in the front, with the clutch flight once we went to the supercharged engine. But we would run 3rd gear in the 7 and 2nd in the 9 and 12.
Really?
But we'd run 12,000 pounds.
Right.
Yeah, and see, we did that a lot with the F30 with the twin Chevrolet
motor too. So you were running
12,000.
The 12,000, 7, 9, and 12.
Yeah, we ran that all the time.
And at that point, was the ITPA formed?
What
the ITPA?
Okay.
Or am I getting ahead of you?
Wait a second. I know I made a note of this. Okay, when I got out of the service in '69 is when NTPA was forming.
Okay.
That winter, '69 into '70.
Okay.
And the original meeting was right over here at the Moline Holiday Inn.
Okay.
And Lanny, Daryl, and I were there.
Really?
And we met with Ed Hart and that Russell Case.
Yes.
I don't know if those names ring any bells.
Oh yeah. In fact, I'm just going to let it out of the bag. I'm in conversation with Ed Hart. He's down in Kentucky, and we got an interview coming up with him. So he's a tremendous historian.
Oh my goodness.
About the sport of the NTPA, and even. And once we get to his podcast, he'll talk about, the meetings that led up to this meeting, and it was just a group of guys saying we got to get uniform rules because you guys were starting to go different places, and then it's like you had to change things.
Yep, the best thing about that whole thing is it made the rules all the same, and it made them for the state level too, because they not only, it was kind of like the federal government, the NTPA was the federal government, and each state, if they wanted, they could be a certified NTPA state, and then they would run the same rules. And
then points could also some way transfer.
So your weight classes were all the same, your points, all that stuff was all done, and that was just the greatest thing. Okay.
And it's unfortunate. There's still an ITPA. They're in under the Outlaw Pulling League umbrella today. And I'm not sure what happened to some of the other states, like Missouri and some of those. But the thing that remains, it still has a lot of classes that are very similar. They don't take much, there's not much variation. So the NTPA still drives a lot of that because some of those classes, if it's a tractor that can run with the NTPA, all the other associations want to have the same rules. Yeah. And so it's really unique how it's really held. Yeah,
because I heard a guy on one of these things where he made a tractor and then they said it wasn't legal to use.
Right.
So,
yeah, but he was pretty bitter about that.
Okay. And during the time that Daryl and I were building the supercharged Chevys, I had my first daughter, Courtney, okay, who lives just right back here.
Okay.
It's and we won the World Poleless Trophy here.
Okay. And I'll get some of those. We're going to get some photos of all these to put in there to show these folks.
Okay.
Now.
Anyway, and that was one of those where Daryl just drove it right to perfection. We had that thing in second gear, just screaming right up behind this guy. And just when he started to pull ahead, he shifted into third gear, and it would just boom, just jump right out. And we won. You know, it was I can't remember whatever it was by a very wide margin. And there was some really good machinery there. There was anyway 50 in the class.
Oh my goodness!
And they were from the Little American, the All American, all these guys from Ohio. And, that were in that 7,000-pound class. So that was quite a deal.
Where was most of your success then? In the 7,000 pound?
I always liked the 12 myself.
Okay.
Once I got the twin supercharged. 12,000 was my class.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you did.
I was a little nose heavy for the 7.
So you did get back to being involved in the twin motor or twin engine again then.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See,
well, we'll stay. I'll keep going with your order
let's keep my thing going here. But I hope I'm not missing too much. But Daryl drove that pace tracker to perfection. It was just a work of art. And then that winter, we went down to like Fort Worth. I didn't go along, and he never got stopped down there. For 2 years, he ran that tractor down there and was never stopped in the 7 and the 9.
Really?
Always made full pulls. And with that, I think it was a 482 or something. Was a half-inch stroker engine that just ran like crazy. And then. Let's see, and then Fort Worth, and then we were experimenting with Nitro back then, and we had a fueler engine that we bought from a funny car guy who went out of the funny car business, Greeno Paoli down in Springfield.
Okay.
I think that's something to do with Tim Wilkerson today.
Really?
I keep thinking that they had some connection, but anyway, that engine on Nitro was just something just totally different to
a lot more horsepower.
Oh my goodness!
And then a little tougher to tune.
See the alcohol just backing it up to the skid. That Yukon that they do, it would just about die every time.
Right.
And with the Nitro, you just throw it in gear and just back up.
And it didn't matter.
Yeah.
A lot more predictable than what the alcohol was.
But boy, it's hard on your ears.
Yeah, it's loud.
Okay, and then Daryl and I kind of wanted different things at that time, so we decided to part company. Lanny continued to run all this time with different combinations, of injected single and twin engines with injection from Crower. So he was one of the first with the Crower injection, which you see.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And the Crower Glide. He was around here. He was the first one with the Crower Glide.
Right.
Tom Brewer and Danny Offit were the first that we really knew about that did it, and they were, because a lot of the Chevrolet guys used the regular hydromatic.
Right. They did.
Yeah.
And you never did do that.
No, I had a clutch flight, which was a torque flight with a dry clutch.
Right.
Okay. And,
but then eventually you used the Crower Glide.
Just the Crower Glide.
Was that just a clutch system?
Yeah, and just direct drive.
Right. Yeah.
What they called a high gear can, like a dragster can.
Right.
And I think that's what they do with the stock tractors, isn't it? Where you just
In fact, not very far from where we're sitting is where Darren Roush, I believe is his name, sells more Crower clutches than anybody else in the United States.
I'll be darned.
Yeah, he's just down across the river from Muscatine. And I would bet you in the tractors that I pull against, they've got 100% of them have Crower clutches, to my knowledge. If they don't, I'll find out here in a few weeks.
Okay, yeah.
They always correct me on here when I'm wrong on that.
Okay.
But that's fine, but I appreciate that, but Crower has really become a big name in tractor pulling.
I'll be darned. Well, see, maybe, I don't know. See, and I was a Crower distributor. Okay,
really?
So I had clutch discs and floaters and pressure plates and stuff.
Interesting.
And sold lots of them to people.
Right.
And people would be calling me at midnight and stuff, want to come up.
Oh yeah, needing them for the next day. And they were a big thing in drag racing too, I know, for a lot of years. And I don't know what people are using today, but
yeah. But I, like I say, I used to stock all that stuff, and just it was a good thing. Bob Molinari, I don't know if that name. I think he still makes stuff like that, but
right.
He was Crowler's guy on that.
Okay.
At that time,
Interesting.
Now I believe Bruce and Dave Crowler both passed away, haven't they?
I'm not sure. I couldn't tell you.
I always dealt with Dave.
Right.
Bruce was always out at a boat, from what I always heard.
Okay. Well, if any of you know what happened with those two brothers, go ahead and drop it in the comments and let us know. It'd be interesting to know.
They always said that Bruce Crowler had a 440 mine, so it was a little bit difficult for us with a 120 volt mine.
To think he was way ahead of you guys.
He was just way ahead of all of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And but Lanny used to talk to Bruce, and I never quite got onto all that. But and then in '75. I, took over the tractor with the supercharged F30 and used Nitro in it, and ran a lot of 10,000 open, a lot of 12 open. And Lanny ran 2 injected engines in the F30 with some success. Let's see, I did well in Louisville with it. And
what'd you do in Louisville? Do you recall? Top 5?
Trophies up there. I think there's a second and a third.
Okay.
I never won it.
Okay. And at that point, you still had the guys out of Westchester, probably like Headley, Ron Headley.
Ron Headley, yes.
And Jerry Fornash, and some of those were running down.
And Ron Headley was into the 426, and
yes, he
so
was.
We traded knowledge a little bit and stuff, and then I believe I sold him.
He was really knowledgeable on those. From what I hear, he would help people sometimes tune them and give advice on that. Yeah,
and then we both hung out with Vern Motes, who was a local drag racer in Des Moines. We talked different stuff with him too. And a lot of times, we could get stuff from the drag racers that had been used up as far as they're concerned, but would have been safe enough for us.
Right.
I mean, when you're going 300 miles an hour, you got to be making sure that engine's not going to fall apart.
Right. Right.
So after so many runs of stuff, they would give it up, and we could reuse it. Let's see. Yeah, Lanny ran the 2-engine injected. Okay, and then.
And you and Lanny were both running your own machines by then.
We were different machines.
Right.
Yeah. We were partners on that original F30, and then we decided that it's better that we not be partners, and we can still love each other as brothers, and he could run his operation, I could run mine, and then I would help him a lot, and he could help me too, because he was always, a big burly guy, strong,
he could help
character.
Which one of the two of you had more success then when you split up?
Which one had the more? Well, I'd have to say that Lanny probably did, because he ran more than I did.
Okay.
He went a lot more places than I did.
Right. You were busy in the business by then,
I just
and
wasn't
he was
as well
farming.
known, I don't think. And Lanny, like I say, was more social, drank other people's beer a lot more, and had a good time.
Places.
Had a great time with everybody, and it was really something. He had pretty good fan base, I think.
Good.
Okay, see, and then by 1975 we had to reinforce the bull gears in the F30. I remember hearing on your podcast where they were lightening the bull gears. We had to put panels on because the spokes would break.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, you'd take that cover off and you'd go, oh my God, it would, and then the hub would break, and so we rebuilt all that, and then in 75 using reusable rear transmissions, and we used transmission straps, because that's when I busted that high gear transmission, because the bottom case, in order to be an underslung, you had to cut it off.
Right.
And then that left the case not as strong as it should have been, and we should have had reinforcement there to hold it together. And what happened is the case blew up like this, and then it knocked those gears out. And so, I mean, if I'd known about those, I'd been probably a little more careful with them.
But that was the interesting part with what you guys have done. You had to learn all that.
Yeah.
You know, we have the luxury of, you know, like Carl at Atlas, and you have Profab, and, you know, we can buy billet carriers and parts, and they're proven.
Yeah.
When we buy them, we know what we need to put on for the horsepower range we're in, the class we're in, and you guys were just fabricating and trial and error.
And we would call California and say, I want something, because, you know, Glencoe and these people we dealt with didn't have an idea what we were doing.
Right, they didn't understand.
But they knew horsepower.
Right.
You know? So that, and when I was in the service, I used to go to different people like Chet Herbert and guys like that and ask questions.
Really?
Know? Yeah, and he
which would be Doug Herbert's father.
And he was in a wheelchair from a racing accident.
Really?
Yeah, and
very interesting.
And he told me, you know, blown alcohol would put you ahead of everybody for a while. And see, and then the decision was made on my way home to go twin engine instead, because I didn't really know much about the blown alcohol.
Right.
But I wanted to, because, you know, those top fuel engines have been running in my mind forever.
Right.
Because I've been to Orange County, you know, and all that when I was stationed out there. You know, we went to all those big events.
So you've seen them run. You knew what they could do.
Where they'd have 64 top fuel cars and stuff at a race.
Wow.
And you'd go unbelievable.
That's interesting. What were some of the names? Do you remember some of them?
Well, like BB and Mulligan, you know, Don Perdome, of course, Doug Garlitz, and all those guys would be out there.
Forrest wouldn't have been running yet, was he?
No.
He was back.
Well, let's see. Yeah.
Early days, maybe.
He's younger than I am. And then so he was just kind of the Night Stalker and all that stuff. I was long gone by then, back here.
Shirley Modowney.
But
was she running yet?
Shirley Muldowney? Oh yeah.
And
then Cha-Cha, they called her then.
Yep.
And then Paula Murphy. Let's see, you know, let's say BB and Mulligan. Let me see, who else would there have been? The Surfers and, you know, just anybody that you ever heard of.
You probably went to a lot of that stuff when you're out there, because you're in the place you can do it. What would you say? I mean, you started as a young man, already starting to look for performance and hopping things up. What were some things that you realized, I've got a gift for this, and you kind of know what to look for to make an engine run and gain horsepower?
That's a pretty big question.
It is. It's all multifaceted. But like, what stage of life did you start to figure out, I can
make this go? Oh, it was probably once by the time I got home from the service.
Okay. But I mean, you would have seen a lot out there that gave you a lot of ideas. Because I
wanted to do it.
Right.
But we just didn't have the money. You know?
Right.
I didn't have the wherewithal, because you're just lower than low when you're a serviceman in California.
Right.
You know, you're at the bottom of the heap, you know, as far as anything goes.
But I just know there's
no money, you got no nothing.
Yeah. But I just know there's a point in time that usually somebody figures out, you know, somebody inspires them that, this is what makes this stuff work, and we can start pushing and
that would be one of my regrets, is that I didn't attach myself to one of those teams. But I always wondered, why didn't I do that? And I remember I was in the hospital.
Right. You weren't out that much.
I didn't have a car.
Right.
You know, I couldn't just drive over this guy's place.
Right. And do it.
But we did have Jim Nelson and Dode Martin was the company called Dragmaster.
Yes.
I don't know if you ever heard them.
Yes, I have.
See, they were right there in Carlsbad.
Yes.
And see, in Carlsbad, drag strip was kind of like on the backside of Camp Pendleton. So I did get to there quite a bit, and I did go talk to Jim Nelson a lot too.
Okay.
And he, you know, he had a term that I've used the rest of my life. He says, that thing runs like a sack of bananas.
Well, and then
but after seeing some of these fellows, I would say about the time I got home, I figured we can do this.
Yeah, you can get a real job.
And that is a joy no one can ever describe, you know, almost as much as, you know, haven't seen your child born and stuff like that, is to drive off that military base and no, I'm not going to have to go back again.
Really? That was a big deal.
Just to see the sergeant major out there doing roll call and just kind of,
I'm out of here and you're not calling my name again.
I'm gone.
Yeah. I'm sure.
I've done this.
Well, the sacrifice a lot of you guys made is so tremendous.
After that, everything is easy.
Yes.
You know? So I guess maybe that might answer your question.
And you know, that maybe wasn't so much your mechanical knowledge as just your mental fortitude and strength, because there's always things that we're going to be tested in. And one thing about being in the Marines, you don't have the choice to slack off. I mean, you're going to step
Marines
up and
don't
do it.
quit. Yeah. You're going to have to do it.
Yeah, they're
Whatever
not
they say
backing
you're going
off.
to do, you might as well do it because you're going to have to.
You're going to do it anyway.
You,
So.
you ain't going to get out.
Anyway, we're just getting a little off
we're
track.
digressing.
But the thing I do notice is I do feel like drag racing and tractor pulling have similarities. And I followed NASCAR and a lot of rally racing and things for a number of years, motocross. But the thing that I see with drag racing, they've always been very transparent in just letting fans in the pits and around them. And you go to tractor pulling, it's the same way. There's always some competition amongst people. But, if somebody needs a part and I've got it, they're going to get it. I mean, it's just how it is.
Yeah.
They'll come help. And I see drag racing a lot that way too.
Yeah. See, and in both cases, I could see the horsepower.
Right.
And that's what the whole thing has been about for me was.
Right.
And the neat thing about the tractor pulling was there was no limit to it. You could do whatever you wanted to do to make as much power as you want to make.
Right.
When they outlawed Nitro though, that changed right here. Yeah.
Okay.
That changed a lot of things, and then I just knew we had to go to more engines. If we were
Okay.
going to keep doing this. And,
Do you know why they outlawed Nitro?
What's that?
Do you know why they outlawed the Nitro?
Well, they were afraid of the explosion, supercharged explosion.
Yeah.
Okay, they didn't
figured,
they
but-
didn't want to get anybody to get hurt.
Get the crowd to get hurt.
They didn't. Well, and seeing it was right after they'd blown up some clutches and
Yep.
stuff, and people
Yeah.
were getting hurt and this, that, and the other. But Dean Isley still allowed it with the ATPA. Okay, so I still ran Nitro. I kind of, did it back and forth, but I blew a cylinder head off an engine down at the Astrodome.
Oh, really?
And then fixed it in. I was able to had enough pieces to patch it back together and run it on alcohol, and still ended up second or third or fourth, something like that.
Really?
Yeah, Tom Brewer might remember if you run into him.
Okay.
I can't remember just what I did, but I do have a picture in here of the tractor down in the Astrodome. But it still, we managed to get it to run pretty good. But I made a mistake in my computations of compression. I was running too much compression, too much nitro. So so
that happens.
In other words, it didn't have a big explosion, but it broke the head bolts and stuff.
Right.
So we welded head bolts together.
Really? Interesting.
And normally, say there's always people in the crowd that will help you. And you'd always find somebody that would run to an auto parts store for you
and get you
what
something.
you wanted.
Right.
That was always pretty good because I'd done a similar thing at Indianapolis. There was an ATPA pole, and it was on an ice rink in the old where the Indianapolis played basketball. That thing was way up in the air.
Oh yeah.
You had to tow the tractors way up there.
Gosh, what was the name of that place? Was it the Hill Coliseum?
And, I think I ended up winning that pole, if I remember right, even with everything flying out of it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. What it said, I'd made a full pull and then had enough stuff along. Yeah, I remember my crew guys running down there and getting the head gasket out of the truck, and then they found a guy that went into town to get some wire to make, for the O-ring around it and get it going again. So it was quite a deal. Yeah, tore the engine apart right there at the arena, and there's people just
watching you do the whole thing. That was wasn't that called the Indy Super Pole, if I recall?
No,
or is that a different one?
That
is
would
that
be
a different
actually one? That was actually at the fairgrounds.
Okay, that one was.
Okay, this was Market Square Arena.
Okay.
I think that's what it was called, Market Square
All right,
Arena.
so it was before the Indy Super came along.
Well, but the Indy Super Pole was being run then because I did, with that in 1975, I think I placed second.
At the Indy Super as well?
Yeah, at the Indy Super Bowl.
Okay.
And they didn't give trophies. They just gave you money. That was supposed to be the big deal, that it was the biggest paying thing.
Okay, gotcha.
And that really, because there again, let's see if I remember right, I made a full pull and Ron Bargy made a full pull. And then on the re-pull, he beat me just by a little bit.
Right.
Okay? With that single Chrysler against an Allison.
Oh,
you
wow.
Imagine that.
You had the single Chrysler.
Single Chrysler at that time.
You bet.
So then at that point we knew we needed to go more horsepower. So then right here in this little garage, We built a twin Ford 26s in an F30 rather, and I sold the extra, that stroker engine I had, to Al Hars and Gary Vandersnick. Those guys were, funnier than more fun than a barrel of monkeys, They were crazy guys.
And you went away from the stroker at that point. You went 2 engines, and you were
so
going for more RPM then.
Yeah, the 2 engines I put in were 426s bored 30 over, 60 over, so they were 440s.
And then you were just cranking more RPM.
Cranking them, yeah. So I didn't have the faster gear, so we just ended up making it up in speed.
Oh my goodness!
Boy, them things would wind, and I had a tack on it, a mechanical tack. I was looking at it be going down the track, and it'd be going to 10,000, and just
oh my gosh,
just waving away there, yeah. And your ears, so that's pretty neat. What kind of tractor is that? Oh, about 5:15. Yeah.
We're not telling you.
So I still, now I take out my hearing aids. I can't hear anything. But we, those things could really whine. Won a lot of events. Was broke down a lot. Won Bowling Green, but I got disqualified.
What happened?
Knocked the weight off the front.
Oh,
it was one of them deals where I was just happy as hell. I saw the marker go by, that I pulled in the first place, and then I saw I was running out of bounds, and I got off the throttle and I bumped it in the process.
And it popped the weight off.
It popped out from underneath the weight. And so it waved the red flag, and that was that.
Oh my goodness.
But I guess I can only say I won it, but
unofficially won it handily. And that's probably, and that's interesting you bring that up, because today they've all got to be tied down some way or another.
Yeah. So which is something we just never thought about.
Right.
And didn't pay attention to it. Okay, I did want to digress just a little bit here.
Sure.
During this whole time, Lanny put together a twin supercharged tractor, the Big Bad Wolf.
Okay.
Which was quite an engineering situation. It was built very light, so he was pretty well balanced in the 7,000 class.
Okay.
So he could run 7, 9, and 12
as well.
Pretty good. And between Lanny and I, we made big horsepower of that thing. We had 2 Chevrolets. They were big cubic inch, and they really. We put good blowers on there, and
you were the motor man behind that one too.
Yeah. So we did some good. And Craig Schlabaugh actually built the tractor, but yet I still had my connections with the speed shop here, so we could do stuff and build pretty good power.
That's interesting. So Craig did some work for you guys.
Yeah. Craig built that tractor. The Big
I think
Bad
we're
Wolf.
this close to getting him on a show. He's worked on a lot of tractors.
And Craig is still around.
Yep, he's still Wellman, Iowa.
I've
just seen
but
him. Went into the local bar last fall to get a bite to eat, and he came in there and we had a good visit. So yeah.
Okay. All right.
He's still around.
And Craig was always a good friend to Lanny.
Yeah.
They were buddies.
And I think I remember him talking about Lanny. Now that you mention it, I just didn't know who Lanny was at the time.
Yeah.
I knew of you, but I didn't know of Lanny.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, they were always buddies. Now, did Cynthia, something happened with her though? Is she still
I
around?
think she's still around too.
Okay, all right. I guess I'd heard something, but I didn't know for sure.
I know we all are getting older, but.
Yeah, there you go. Tell me about it. Craig was, like I say, him and Lanny, and Craig was a very funny guy and always had just always a good slant on things. He was pretty entertaining.
Yeah.
Enjoyed him, and he was good at what he did. The welding and all that
fabrication
kind of stuff.
was a strong point for him for sure.
Yeah. He was good at that kind of stuff. Yeah. So he built the Big Bad Wolf, and Lanny had a lot of success with that. He won here at Davenport at a Grand National. Beat Arfons, beat Banner, whoever was there, outran them all. Which Lanny and I could do a lot. We would win like that. One or the other would, do well, at a particular track, and we'd help each other. And
he ran the Chevrolets, you ran Chryslers.
Yeah, I ran the Chryslers, and Lanny ran the Chevrolets.
Yeah. Okay.
And Craig Schlabaugh called us the Sea Boys because Craig was a Ford man.
Yep.
Okay, and so he called us, and I remember Cynthia saying, "No, it's the K boys." It says, "No, it's C for Chevrolet."
Chevrolet and Chrysler. Interesting.
And then I sold the tractor to Willie Young, the twin, because I was, tired of the broken transmission and, this, that, and the other, and the jumpiness of it, and needed more power.
Right.
And so I built a 3-engine, 4-engine tractor. I never could quite get it to the 4-engine stage.
Okay.
But I had it set up so we could. And we could run the engines.
What was holding you back from going to 4 engines?
Finances, just.
Okay, so it wasn't the gearboxes and that setup.
No, the gearbox and everything was there.
Okay.
It was all set up to do, and I had the drive shafts, I had the couplings.
Okay.
I had everything set. It's just that, to 3, because we went from cast iron engines to aluminum engines to Keith Black's.
So
which was just a huge
expense, and then by the time you got to 3 engines, what do you think you're running for horsepower combined?
Well, see, I always thought we could get around 1,200 out of those things.
Out of each motor,
so about
you'd have been
3,600.
So that's a long way from the 90 horse 560
Long
you had started with.
Long ways.
Yeah.
Long ways.
What was the reason you went down the modified road and didn't stay on the ag track?
The drag racing thing.
That's what got you.
Seeing
I figured.
Seeing those big engines and just feeling that in your chest.
Yeah.
It would, and I guess there's not much you can say to describe the feeling of pushing the throttle on that thing.
Yeah. And I think the ag
makes
motors,
everything else look pretty dull.
The ag motors, I think, are even so much different than what they were back then.
Oh.
We're running gear ratios way above what, those guys ran back in the day. And with 1 turbo, we're running more horsepower than those guys did with 4. So, that's quite a difference.
Yeah. The technology on all
the RPM we're getting out of them is just amazing compared to what they were. So anyway, back to
okay. So we were with that twin engine tractor, we were able to beat the best of the best on any given day.
Yeah.
And we got second at the World Pull at Blue Earth that one up there at Blue Earth, and that was quite an adventure in itself. In that it rained like 10 inches of rain. It had been a drought when we got there. The ground was just powder, and then it rained like 8 or it just like a monsoon. It didn't stop, and it was like 100,000 people there on that grounds.
Oh,
it was
my
like
goodness.
a city. Okay, a person died, a person was born.
Oh my goodness!
It was unbelievable. And I remember going to the phone to call my guys back here and check in with them. We didn't have cell phones.
Right.
I went up to the payphone. And here's a guy coming with a motorhome, and he's throwing mud like rooster tails behind him. And I had to go run. I said, "Okay, hang on." I threw the phone down and had to run while the rooster tails go past me. And
he was trying to get out.
Him,
and he was trying to get out of the place.
Yeah. Unbelievable. But luckily, Don McCloskey, one of the guys that was in the crew, brought his motor home. And he was by himself. Usually he'd have his kids along, so there'd be no room in there. So we got to stay with him in that thing because we were gonna stay in a tent.
And that wasn't going to happen in that weather.
That wasn't happening. And so those were a lot of the things that caused me to want to go away from that tractor to build a semi that I could have living quarters in and be able to stay at the track and not have to run to a hotel room back and forth and all that stuff. Okay, so we were gonna put up a real professional effort. I built this building next door. It used to just be a chicken barn. It was only about yay big.
So you raised it up.
Raised it up, and it was long enough to put 2 semis side by side in, 2 tractor trailer rigs, and we were also thinking about putting a living quarters in there for crew and all that kind of stuff. And we did all that. We put the living quarters in the thing and built this unbelievable tractor in here with all these engines.
So the tractors all got built though in this garage?
Right in here. And the F-30s, the F-30 with the Chryslers.
Okay.
The stuff with the Chevrolets was out at my dad's house.
Right.
And different places, or Lanny's place.
Right,
And
Lanny
stuff
had them,
and the tractor, was just a huge undertaking. We were going to do 4 motors, but I just didn't have enough money to buy 4 aluminum blocks. And start from there.
Right.
But I was, heading that direction if I could.
Right.
Okay. Now, that's digress just a second here. The couplings between the engines, the 1976 tractor, the twin supercharged, we used a Lenco coupler.
Okay.
Which was, mounted, to the lower pulley on the back engine and the crank on the other, and then just had a sleeve between it, that with a bolt going through it just to keep it from sliding.
Right.
It's basically a Greek coupler, universal Greek coupler. And this was something that I designed and had Lenco make. And by the time they had made one for me, they already were sending one to Don Harness and all these other characters that all got wind of this thing. Yep. That it was so much easier than fighting with that double roller chain. Right. That it was just a Greek
have
coupler.
One piece.
I keep feeling like I helped a whole bunch of people with this, and then they that opened up the market to a lot of people about how easy it is to couple engines together with that Greek coupler idea.
Well, and one of the reasons I asked, because I had Bibbs or Billy Giberson on here. I don't know if you knew him or not, but he worked on different pulling teams, and I know he worked for Tim Engler, and they were working on a lot of these couplers too, because then the problem that started to happen, and you maybe didn't get there, I know he was talking about once we got from 4 engines, they get to 5, 6, 7, to get the gearboxes to line up right. Mm-hmm. And because they would start fighting each other and breaking gearboxes. So they finally figured that piece out.
Because it gave it a little
because there was flex in there, so they figured that out.
See, and then dragsters had done that for years.
Yeah, so they were ahead of you guys on that.
Well, I bet Tim Engler is a guy that I used to talk back and forth with. He would go, So those ideas, were probably things I'd talk to him about.
Right, very likely.
He used to buy stuff from me.
Oh, really?
Way back in the day, And then he's just taken off,
Yeah, he's done
he had that
extremely
machine
well.
shop, and he started really applying his stuff. All he needed was a few ideas, and he took it and ran with it.
No, he's done a great job.
He was good.
Built a lot of pieces.
Yeah, he built a lot of stuff for a lot of people. He was, and he was pretty good at what he did.
Still does.
Yeah. So anyway, with this engine, we built it so you could run any combination. You could run 2 inline, you could run, side by side, you could run one over here and one over here, whatever, and you could just lay it on the ground and start it up and, had its own fuel tank and everything. Right.
It's self-contained where it would slip right in really easy.
And it all had the Greek couplers everywhere.
Right.
On all ends onto the gearbox and,
Interesting.
It was all just that stuff. I started it in 1977, didn't get done with it till 1978. During 78, we had some huge winter storms. I know I went to a car show with it, and we had a hell of a time getting it back. There's so much snow.
I remember that. I was only 8 years old, but I recall
so much snow.
We had so much snow that year.
Yeah, and then we took it to Chicago. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, I took it to the car show in Chicago, and the fellows that ended up buying it came up there to see it.
The pulling tractor.
Yeah. And of all things, the Illinois Association called me to go, a kid from Iowa,
to go up there because they wanted to.
So we were at the McCormick place. But anyway, I ran it at different places and did some good. And then Gary Vandersnick and Al Hars that bought that 1/2-inch crank or stroker engine came around and thought it was cool and they wanted it, and I sold it to them, and they took it to the Silver Dome and won the first time out with it. Gary Vandersnick, they sent an ambulance out because they thought he went crazy. He was so happy, he was jumping around. First time he'd ever pushed the throttle on it.
He didn't know what happened, and here he's indoor on this big
And so here a machine that gave me nothing but new machine blues ran for hundreds and hundreds of runs with these guys.
And they just did really well with it.
Because it was actually a little bit overbuilt. We just had to fix a few problems on it. And at that point, I just had it with the heavy weight stuff. I wanted to get into drag racing.
Right.
And our funds, so I was telling me, don't do that, you'll kill somebody, And so I bought a funny car from a guy in Minneapolis, Ron Salzburn, his name was.
Right.
And we, brought it right in here in this garage, and I was all excited about it. My wife comes home, Shelley comes driving up. I open up the garage door to show it to her. She starts crying.
Oh no!
Oh no! And she just come back saying, "Well, she's pregnant."
Oh no! She comes. So she was emotional.
She was crying because she knew I'd be gone all the time with that damn thing.
And she's going to be raising
with
kids
2 kids,
alone.
she probably wouldn't be real excited about it.
Right.
And I just kind of closed the garage door. And, okay.
And you got
time to
rid
get
of
busy, So we went to work, and
And that's when you got out of tractor pulling and drag racing.
Drag
so
racing.
you never really got into the drag racing because of the tractor pulling.
Because of tractor pulling. And
all that just went away.
And I ended up, it was a real interesting thing of selling it. And our daughter Mackenzie was born that next October. Sold the car to Arnie Beswick. And it was originally Jungle Jim Lieberman's car. I don't know if you ever heard of it.
Oh, really?
Okay, and I could have bought the name for it. I didn't know at the time that would have been something, because there was another fellow ended up with a car, and he's always calling me, who can I get to verify that was Jungle Jim's?
Yeah.
I'll give you the name of the guy I got it from, but
right.
But he apparently had the paperwork to do it.
Really? Interesting.
But he wanted more money for it.
Right. And, certainly.
Money's always been important to me.
Yeah.
So I didn't
Interesting.
do it. And then we sold the trailer to John Stahl. He always Stull.
Okay.
He was a great fellow. He was well into his 60s, and he had me build him 2 526-inch Keith Black engines with aluminum heads and the whole deal. 871s and bird catchers and 526 cubes. And they just ran beautiful. And he had the Gambler tractor. I don't know if you ever heard of that.
Yep, I've heard of it.
Yeah, okay. And he won first time out with that. And
so you continued to build things then?
For a little bit, but the business, we went from 1 store to 4 stores, and I just didn't have the time for it.
Right.
And we just took a different turn in life, traveled the world, and raised my daughters. And then once my youngest daughter was graduating from school, we started snowmobile racing.
And that's where you're at today still.
Because Lanny and I really enjoyed riding snowmobiles
right.
together. But I enjoyed the high performance part of it the most.
Right. So a couple of things that I want to hit on. I know you had mentioned Lanny was really involved in the Davenport tractor pull. Mm-hmm. And when I interviewed Mike Fornash, Jerry's son, he said when Jerry first got started tractor pulling, he drove from Westchester, Iowa, all the way to Davenport. And I'm trying to think, but somebody drove with him, and I don't recall the name, but it might be out on the podcast, unless he told me off camera. But I believe it's on that episode. So Davenport, Iowa was kind of a big deal for tractor pulling mm-hmm. for many years. And mm-hmm. it kind of then really, the 80s were hard on a lot of things, but it's kind of revived again. And there's a 2 tracks there again, and they run 2 sleds, and they're starting to put on a pretty good show again. So.
Yeah. And it's being put on by the guy who rents our farm here.
Really?
Yeah. Can I say it? No.
I can't say his name either. I've met him. He and I are talking about doing some...
Jake, oh, come on. Isn't that something?
Well, that's okay. But yeah, because we've talked about doing...
Jerry Bolt used to be pretty big.
Yeah.
Jerry Bolt did the announcing, and then now he's passed away.
Yeah.
And
so I think I'll probably help promote it some next year.
Jake Peters. Okay,
yes, I think I'll help him probably promote it some next year. And the nice thing is they raise a tremendous amount of money for, St. Jude's? Or that it is, something. There's a child's
like
cause. And I should go back and maybe it's Miracle Network. There's something that they're doing. They're raising a lot of money for that, out of that as well, which is really nice to see.
Yeah. And then when the first promotion, this is a funny story in itself. The first time that Lanny, Daryl, Bud Weir, Don Durant, Dean Vanderheiden, and Daryl Dorsher all put in $100 to start that pull, okay? I was sitting at the table with those guys at the time, and I looked at Daryl, and he just went like this to me because Lanny had borrowed his $100 from Daryl.
And you were looking at Daryl.
I was looking at Daryl to get
Can I borrow another 100? And he said, I'm in to par enough on this
out.
deal. I'm going to bankroll this
you
thing.
You could be the flag man.
Oh gosh, that's interesting.
It turned out to be just a huge success. And
well, it was an NTPA event, wasn't it?
Oh yes, it was
Yes.
an NTPA, and it was just like a grade below a Grand National. Okay, and the promotional thing says it's a warm up for the Grand National in Spencer, which I believe Spencer was the first Grand National because they hadn't gotten to Bowling Green yet.
Right.
And it was earlier in the year.
Okay.
Okay, and we ended up winning out there with the twin
At Spencer.
427s. And what's his name? The honker, Ralph Chamberlain.
Okay.
He was hot because he was sure he won. Okay. And I remember him talking to one of the officials, and the official was showing our tracks way out ahead of his. Oh boy, that did not sit because, the honker was the best running Allison out there at that time.
And you guys
that tractor is lionized everywhere.
Right.
As being, the best Allison.
And then you came along with the twin engines and took advantage of it.
He didn't like that.
So how much did you guys go pull on a national circuit? Was it mostly in the region that you stayed, or did you guys run some NTPA stuff?
Oh, NTPA we ran, quite a bit. I mean, there was quite a few in Michigan we went to, and, the Illinois State Fair was an NTPA deal.
Okay.
Ohio State Fair, the Indiana State Fair, of course, the Indy Super Bowl.
Right.
We went to, a lot of the big, Bowling Green, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But you never really ran for points on the NTPA circuit necessarily.
I did enough to be in the top 10.
Okay.
Okay. Because you had to be in the top. Wait a minute. Was it top 10 or 20 to go to run an Indy, the Indy Super Bowl?
Oh boy, yeah.
You had to have so many points. Well, I had to be, like in the top in our region. I think.
Right.
Is what it was.
That's I think too. I've had different ones explain how that works somewhat, but it's you had to qualify your way into that.
You had to have. I can't remember what number you had to be in your region, but you'd only get one class if I remember right.
And then, so where you're living today, this is not a family farm necessarily, is it?
This is my all my family lives here. My kids and grandkids.
Right, but was it when you got it? You didn't buy it
No.
from family. It's
No,
your own
no.
place.
Yeah.
And so this building, was it built as a garage or a shop back in the day?
I believe so. Yeah.
But it was here when you came here.
It was here when it came.
Okay, and then
The one next door was a hog barn or chicken barn or
Right.
you want to say it real
And
low
then,
down.
so you've done a lot of motor work in this building.
Yeah. And I actually at one time had a machine shop that we ran in here.
Okay.
I had the tank, the cleaning tank and
Right.
valve grinding equipment and all that stuff to do.
I almost think I remember hearing about that
and
at
then
times.
and we would do VW engines out here and stuff like
Right.
that. A lot of people don't have a high opinion of the air-cooled Volkswagen, but I love those things. They put food on my table. They bought my house.
And they were really, but they were really simple and basic.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't too complicated. They certainly had to be taken care of to be reliable, but
They required a ton of maintenance.
yeah, but
Oil change every 1,500 and set the valves too. And
yeah,
all that kind of
took
stuff.
some work.
But it could be done really easy, and a guy can.
What are, as you look back over your tractor pulling career, and then we'll move on a little from that, what are some of the biggest highlights? Is it, if you just think of a highlight, what was it?
Oh, well, I mean, doing well at Louisville and doing well at Indy.
Okay.
Those are big ones. And then Bowling Green, of course. I mean, I didn't win, but I always placed, well, and good. And like I say, I did win that one that I got disqualified on, but I can still say I won.
Right.
Now, that's an interesting thing. That particular run, NTPA had in their advertisement, and you would see it all over the country.
They put your run
With
in.
me running down there and the weights coming off the front and me going like this,
And yet they disqualified you.
They disqualified me. There was just, well, it's just one of them things where you want to run out there and catch them,
Right, you could just slow
hopefully
motion
nobody
see
saw
that
that,
happen, yeah. No, I understand. That's frustrating when something like that happens. Because
man.
it's such a basic equipment failure that shouldn't happen.
And you should know better.
Right.
Should have been chained on.
Yeah.
Why
don't, I'm going to grab a camera and we're going to stand up and then we're going to talk through a couple of these that we talked about. I want to show folks a few of the things that you've won.
Okay.
So if you want to do that, we'll grab, I'll get the camera here. Right here, where'd you win that one at?
Okay, that would be at Blue Earth, Minnesota. And I should have, that's one that got away because I couldn't get oil pressure on the back engine. It was a full pull situation, and I believe, I'm trying to remember if it was Ron Bargy again.
Okay.
But I pretty much had a forfeit,
lead on him.
And I really think I could have won, but
What about this one right up here above it? That big 4-post one there.
Yeah, that's the, not Toma, what's the other one? Elkhart.
Okay.
Elkhart, Wisconsin.
Okay.
That's a big one, yeah.
And then
I got to beat Arfons and all the guys in a pull-off there or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you have another one.
That's a Louisville.
Right there's a Louisville trophy.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't see whether it's a second.
That's a 1976, and it's, I'll get that in the frame. That was your third in the 9,000 hot rod class right there.
So that would have been with the twin engine, I think.
Okay, and then this one here is the, let me get it right in the right, see if I can pull that in. I got to get my face out of that. But that's, okay, it was first annual World Hot Rod Championship, 7,000 pound first place.
Yeah.
And
that was with Daryl driving where he did that pace tractor deal.
Oh, really?
Yes, so, he just did a great job of that.
I don't know if you guys can see that okay or not, trying to get that that one. And then you have another one here, right beside it over here. Oh. And that was the second that says Louisville, Kentucky, in the National Farm Machinery Show.
Yeah, what year does it say?
And that was in 74, right there.
74, okay.
Yeah.
That would have been with the single engine, and I believe it was with Daryl driving.
Okay. And then right here, this picture, is that you?
That's at the Illinois State Fair.
Okay.
That's weighing 12,000 pounds.
Wow, a lot of weight on it.
A little old me, and that one's with it weighing 7,000 pounds.
Same tractor. You can
It's
see
always interesting to see the people holding their ears in the background.
Yes, and then you got all the weight off of it at that point. Another interesting thing is your family had a Century Farm, which is just something.
Yes, we do have a Century Farm, but it's out on Slovertown Road.
Right, but it's very unique that in the state of Iowa we have quite a few of those. So, and then some other things you were involved in. Of course, you talked about some show cattle and things like that you were involved in. And so
that Marine there is Chesty Puller, every Marine's hero. Okay.
Okay.
He's even too tough for the Corps.
Interesting. So and then I'm just going to pan out here and kind of go from one side. I know you're into snowmobile drag racing.
Yep.
So of course to practice, you've got your own tree here, and then this is just your wall of fame.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of trophies. You've done a lot in motorsports in general, and it's just been wonderful to experience that with a lot of others. So with that, I just want to thank you for having me in, opening your doors and letting me interview you, and look forward to watching this episode when it comes out.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay. I just still always want to thank my wife, Shelley, for putting up with all this.
You've got a wonderful wife.
Some good crew guys like Bruce Strobing and Don McCluskey and Bruce Walter was another fellow that was pretty loyal to me that just was killed in an auto accident. So had a lot of good memories of all this stuff. But way lucky to be born here at this time in life. Wow.
Yes, you've accomplished a lot. Thanks for what you've done for motorsports.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on the Breaking Barriers podcast.
Breaking Barriers.